If you had told me 3 years ago that I'd be crying in my parked car outside a dog park, watching my ex-boyfriend toss a tennis ball to my dog, I would have laughed. I would have told you, don't be dramatic, he's not that heartless. But here I was, gripping the steering wheel like it might hold me together, as tears blurred the sight of Daisy bounding across the grass to a name that wasn't hers anymore. Her new name was Sadie. I heard it as he shouted it gleefully, calling her back. She wagged her tail, clueless that everything she used to be had been erased just like me. 3 years ago, I met Tyler at a mutual friend's BBQ. He was the guy with a warm grin and the kind of laugh that made you feel like you were in on a secret joke. I wasn't looking for anything serious. I had just moved to Portland, was drowning in grad school papers, and honestly didn't want another heartbreak. But Tyler felt different. He loved hiking. So did I. He hated pineapple on pizza. So did I. When he told me he'd always dreamed of rescuing a dog, I told him that had been my childhood mission to dot, so we went to the shelter 2 months into dating. There, sitting in the back of a rundown kennel, was the shyest, saddest golden retriever I'd ever seen. She wouldn't come forward. Her ears drooped. But when I knelt down and whispered, "Hey there, pretty girl," she inched forward and placed her paw gently on the gate. Tyler and I locked eyes. "That's her," I said. We named her Daisy, after the wildflowers growing near our apartment. She slept at our feet. She whined if one of us left the room. When we fought, which wasn't, often she'd sit between us, nose twitching like she was trying to understand. The breakup came out of nowhere. At least for me. Tyler had started pulling away slowly. First, he stopped picking me up from class like he used to. Then the late night talks faded. The "I love you" sounded mechanical. Until one Sunday afternoon, he sat me down on the couch with Daisy curled up beside us and said, "I think we want different things." Different things? I thought we wanted a life together. I asked him to leave. He did. But as he reached for his keys, he turned and said, "What about Daisy?" I froze. She's my dog, Tyler. I named her, yeah, he said quietly. But I walked her every morning. I paid her vet bills. I trained her. None of it was wrong. But none of it made her less mine. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want a custody battle over a dog, no matter how much I loved her. So I did what I thought was a kind, grown-up thing. "Okay," I said, my throat raw. "She stays with you." That night, after I handed Daisy's leash to Tyler for the last time, I cried until my chest ached. I sat on the living room floor, her empty water bowl in front of me, her chew toy abandoned under the couch, and it felt like I had amputated a piece of my heart with my own hands. It wasn't just about the dog. Daisy had been the soul of our little family, the one who never judged, who loved both of us equally and purely. Giving her up felt like losing the last evidence that anything between Tyler and I had ever been real. I told myself I was doing the mature thing, that it was better for Daisy not to be shuffled between apartments, that Tyler had the yard, the time, the resources. I told myself 100 comforting lies while I stared at her photos on my phone. At 2 a.m. weeks passed, then months. Life moved forward in fragments. I threw myself into work. I joined a book club. I dated a guy named Paul who loved spreadsheets and IPA beers more than dogs or feelings. I tried, God, I really tried. But every walk past a park, every golden retriever I glimpsed from a distance, made something in my chest twist sharply. And then came the day I saw her. It was a random Wednesday afternoon, and I'd taken a long lunch to walk through the neighborhood park. I was just about to turn around when I heard the sound that stopped me cold. "Sadie, come." My heart flipped. I knew that voice. I would have known it in a hurricane. Tyler. I turned slowly, unsure if I even wanted to see, but unable to stop myself. There he was, crouched by a bench, holding a neon green tennis ball. And next to him was Daisy, my Daisy, except not. Her collar was different, brighter, sparkly, and her name tag dangling off the front caught the sunlight. It read, "Sadie." I blinked. My brain couldn't compute. Sadie. I stepped back instinctively, heart pounding in my throat. That was my dog, my dog. Why would he rename her? Why erase the one connection we still shared? Why pretend I had never existed? The betrayal hit me harder than our breakup ever had, and it wasn't over. That night, my best friend Claire sent me a message. "Hey, did you know Tyler's seeing someone new? Just saw his post, against my better judgment." I checked his Instagram. The picture was of him and a brunette with perfect cheekbones on a beach. He was grinning, arm around her waist. The caption read, "My Sadie, no tags, no context. Just enough to sucker punch me." So that was it. He hadn't just renamed the dog. He'd renamed her after his new girlfriend. I must have stared at that photo for 10 straight minutes, my thumb hovering over the screen like I was waiting for it to change. My Daisy, my sweet, clumsy, belly-flopping Daisy was now a prop in a new love story. Rebranded, reclaimed, repurposed into something I didn't recognize, and the worst part, she looked happy, tongue out, tail wagging, ears perked toward the woman who was now, apparently, Sadie. They built an entire narrative around my dog like I had never existed. Claire tried to comfort me. He's doing it to hurt you, you know that, right? She said over drinks later that week. But it wasn't just that, it was deeper. I could have handled a petty post, but he'd renamed something sacred. Daisy wasn't just a pet. She was the only constant in my life when things crumbled. When I lost my mom, Daisy sat with me every night on the couch, head in my lap, eyes watching every tear fall. When Tyler was too busy or too emotionally constipated to ask if I was okay, Daisy always knew. And now, Tyler had the audacity to rename that piece of my history after someone who hadn't earned it. Who didn't know about Daisy's fear of vacuum cleaners or her obsession with peanut butter, or how she'd once slept curled against my stomach through a thunderstorm? But what haunted me most wasn't the betrayal. It was the silence. He didn't tell me. He didn't ask. He just did it. I stopped sleeping well after that. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. in cold sweats, replaying memories I didn't ask to remember. Daisy in a pink raincoat, Tyler and I laughing as she barked to the Christmas tree. Her first birthday party, where I'd made her a dog-friendly cake and he laughed, calling me extra, but still held her like she was our child. So many echoes, all twisted now. A few weeks later, I caved and texted him. Me. Hey, just wondering why you changed Daisy's name. He read it, didn't reply. 2 days later, I tried again. Me, you could have at least told me. I deserved that much. Again seen, no reply. I felt like a ghost tapping on a window no one cared to open. Until one night, I got a message not from Tyler, but from a mutual friend, Sam. Sam, hey, just so you know, he's telling people you gave up Daisy because you couldn't handle the responsibility anymore. He's saying Sadie was always meant to be hers. I stared at the message, the bile rising in my throat. He wasn't just erasing me from the picture. He was rewriting the story. I gripped the edges of my phone so hard it felt like my fingers might snap. It didn't have, always meant to be hers, was I just a placeholder now? Some nameless, faceless warm-up act before the real story began? No. I wasn't going to let him erase me like that. I opened my old Google Drive folder, the one titled Daisy Days, and scrolled through hundreds of photos and videos. Daisy in her Halloween costume. Daisy gnawing on a slipper twice her size. Daisy tangled in Christmas lights, while Tyler laughed behind the camera. In almost every photo, I was the one holding her. Not him, not Sadie. Me. I posted a picture to my private Instagram account. Just a snapshot of Daisy licking my cheek on the day we brought her home. The caption, Day 1. You were always mine. The comments flooded in from friends who remembered, who knew. But that night, I received a DM from an unfamiliar name, SadieLane_92. I stared at it for a while, debating whether to open it. Eventually, curiosity won. Hi. I know this is awkward, but I wanted to say I didn't know Daisy used to be yours. Tyler told me he rescued her from a neglectful owner. Neglectful? My head spun so fast I had to sit down. I read the message again and again, each word landing like a slap. Not just erasure, defamation. He had turned me into the villain in his new romance novel. I typed back furiously. That's a lie. I raised her from a pup. She was loved every day. She was my dog. A pause. Then her reply came quickly. I believe you now. I'm sorry. He made it sound like he saved her. I stared at the screen, breathing heavy, shaking with a mixture of relief and rage. She believed me, but only now. Only after the damage had already been done. And even though I wanted to hate her, I couldn't. She didn't steal Daisy. Tyler gave her away, handed her the leash like it meant nothing. That was the part that hurt the most. The day I agreed to let him keep Daisy, we were standing on our apartment steps, surrounded by the debris of a 6-year relationship. I was numb, exhausted, and stupidly thinking it was a fair choice. You work from home. She loves you more anyway, I said, trying to be the bigger person. He had just nodded, barely looking at me. Now I realized he saw that moment as a win, not a sacrifice. I thought I was doing the right thing, but he saw it as surrender. A few days later, I got a text from Claire. Want to come to the shelter with me? I'm thinking of adopting a cat. I hesitated. My heart wasn't ready, but I agreed anyway when we arrived. A small brown mutt with floppy ears and a lopsided smile sat quietly in the last kennel, not barking, just watching. I crouched down. She tilted her head. I whispered, "Hey, sweetheart," and for the first time in weeks, I felt something soft break open in my chest. Maybe not all beginnings come from endings. Maybe some of them just start with a choice to try again. The shelter staff told me her name was Lulu, but it didn't fit her. She looked more like a Junie. Small, unsure, eyes wide like she was waiting for someone to love her back the way she deserved. Claire watched as I knelt beside the kennel. You okay? She asked softly. I didn't answer right away. My mind was tangled past and present, colliding in my chest like two storms meeting over the same sea. I think she's choosing me, I whispered. Claire smiled, placing her hand on my shoulder. Then don't let her go. I adopted Junie that day. I walked her out of the shelter on a leash that felt lighter than the one I let go of months ago. She trotted beside me like we'd always known each other, our shadows moving side by side under the late afternoon sun. That night, when we got home, I laid a blanket next to my bed for her. She refused it and curled up next to my legs instead. The warmth of her tiny body against mine, the steady rhythm of her breathing, it didn't erase the pain of losing Daisy, but it reminded me I still had the capacity to love still. The ghost of Daisy lingered in corners of my apartment. I found myself hesitating before saying Junie's name, the syllables foreign on my tongue compared to the familiar softness of Daisy. I never told Junie to sit the way I did with Daisy. I avoided her old toys, even though I kept them in a box on my closet shelf. I wasn't ready to close the chapter yet. Weeks passed. Junie followed me everywhere, fiercely loyal in a quiet, gentle way, not demanding, just present. One morning, I opened my inbox to an email from Tyler. The subject line, thought you should know. I braced myself. My stomach turned as I clicked. It was a single line. Sadie and I broke up. Thought you'd get a kick out of that. There was no mention of Daisy, no apology, just ego. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened Instagram again. His account was public now. The most recent photo was of him alone at the park, the leash barely visible in the corner. Daisy, no. Juniper looked away from the camera. She wasn't smiling. She looked lost. My heart clenched. Did she miss me? Did she remember me at all? I shut the app and stared at Junie, who was chewing quietly on a squeaky duck toy by the couch. She looked up at me and wagged her tail. Just once, soft and certain. I smiled. I didn't need to go looking for ghosts. I had someone here alive, breathing, needing. That night, as I tucked Junie into bed beside me again, I whispered, I won't let anyone rename you. You're mine. And you're safe. She licked my wrist, settled her chin on my leg, and sighed in that sweet, contented way dogs do when they've decided you're their person. It was small, quiet healing. But it was real. The days became gentler, not because the past stopped hurting, but because I stopped letting it own me. I created new routines with Junie: morning walks along the water, evenings curled up on the couch watching reruns of shows I'd once shared with Tyler but now reclaimed as mine. Junie thrived. Her tail, once hesitant, now wagged confidently. She greeted neighbors like a seasoned greeter and nestled beside my knees during weekend visits, like she'd always belonged to this version of my life. One afternoon, Claire and I were drinking iced coffee on my balcony. Junie lay between us, her paws twitching in some silent dream. You know, Claire said, gently nudging me. You seem lighter. I smiled. I feel it, some days. Anyway, Claire raised her brows. Have you thought about writing again? That hit me harder than I expected. My old journal still sat on my shelf, dusty and untouched. I hadn't written anything real since the breakup. Not a poem, not a line, not even a note to self. I used to believe in stories, in putting words around pain to give it shape. Tyler used to call my notebooks emotional landmines, half mocking, half true. But that version of me had been quieted until now. That night, I opened a fresh journal. The first page trembled under my hand, and then I began. Her name was Daisy when I met her, and I loved her like she had a heartbeat. The words poured out like old rain, soft, overdue, necessary. I wrote until my hand ached, until the lump in my throat gave way to tears I didn't hide from. Junie rested her chin on the couch, eyes watching me like she understood I wasn't writing about her. But somehow for her, writing again didn't fix everything. But it reminded me who I was before the heartbreak, before I gave away pieces of myself to someone who renamed them without asking. A week later, Claire invited me to a dog-friendly book fair in the park. Junie came along, wearing a tiny blue bandana that said adopted and adored. We were browsing a local poetry booth when I saw Tyler standing 3 feet away, leash in hand, looking far too familiar for comfort. And beside him, Daisy. She was thinner now. Her ears perked slightly when she caught my scent. I didn't move. Neither did she. Tyler noticed me and did a double take for the first time. I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Not arrogance, not amusement, guilt, or maybe regret. It was hard to tell. He gave a nod, almost imperceptible. Her name's Juniper now, he said softly, like a confession. Still hates the rain, still sleeps in the exact same curl. I nodded. She always did. We stood there, a moment suspended in bittersweet air. Then Juniper pulled at her leash, not toward me, just away, as if the thread that once connected us had frayed too much to hold. I'm glad she's okay. I whispered. Tyler gave a half smile. You look good. I didn't answer. Because I didn't need his approval. Not anymore. Claire stepped beside me, protective and steady, ready to go. I turned to her. And to Junie, who looked up at me like she was waiting for my world to move again, I smiled. Yeah. Let's go. After that unexpected encounter with Tyler, something shifted, not just in the air, but in me. I didn't cry when we left the book fair. I didn't spiral or second guess. Instead, I felt strangely affirmed, like the universe had given me a mirror just for a moment to show how far I'd come. Seeing Juniper, once mine, now so far, and it stung, yes, but it also set me free. I thought I'd fall apart, I told Claire as we sat on my living room floor that night. Ginny curled against my leg. But I didn't, Claire grinned. Because you've built a life that doesn't collapse at his name anymore. I held Junie's paw. I just wanted her to be loved, and maybe, Claire said gently, that love came full circle. It was a thought I'd come back to again and again. Not because it was easy, but because it helped me breathe over the next few weeks. I continued writing. It started with small story snippets about my walks with Junie, letters I never sent, memories I'd buried so deeply they felt fictional. But soon, something bigger began to take shape. A memoir. I titled it, The Dog He Renamed. Each chapter was a mix of heartbreak and healing. A record of all I had lost and found. Claire read every page with tears in her eyes. You need to share this, she said. I laughed nervously. But the world with women like you, she insisted, with anyone who's ever given up something they loved and wondered if they'd made a mistake. It terrified me. But it also thrilled me. So I did it. I self-published the book. At first, just a few downloads. Then a few hundred. Soon, emails began trickling in from strangers who weren't strangers at all. I thought I was the only one who felt erased. Your story gave me permission to grieve what others called just a dog. Thank you for showing how to rebuild. I'd never felt so seen. One reader invited me to speak at a local women's community group. The day of the event, I stood at a podium with shaking hands. Junie sat proudly at my feet. I told them everything. Not just about Tyler or Juniper, but about how sometimes the deepest betrayal doesn't come from cruelty but from erasure, and how reclaiming your voice is the fiercest form of survival. When I finished, the room was silent. Then someone clapped. Then another. Soon, the whole room was applauding, not just for me, but for every woman in the room who had ever been renamed, rewritten, or left behind. That night, I sat on my porch, Junie resting against my leg, the sky bruised with twilight. I think we did it. Girl, I whispered. She didn't answer, of course, but I swear she nudged me with her nose. Like she agreed. And then my phone buzzed. An email. From Tyler. Subject line, thank you. I froze. He wrote, I read your book. Someone sent it to me. I didn't expect to cry, but I did. You wrote the truth. Even the parts that hurt. I'm sorry I renamed her. I thought it would help me move on. But now I see. It wasn't mine to rename. Thank you for loving her when I didn't know how to. And thank you for letting me try. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because I no longer needed anything from him. Tyler's email stayed unopened for days. Even after I read it once, I never read it again. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood that some apologies aren't for fixing the past. They're for confirming you were never crazy for hurting. I didn't reply, not because I was angry, but because silence was my answer now. My piece didn't need punctuation anymore. Claire and I celebrated the book's unexpected success over tacos and margaritas. One Friday night. She toasted 2 dogs who lead us home even if it's not back to who we thought we loved. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. But she was right. Junie wasn't just my dog anymore. She was my symbol of survival, of softness that stayed even when love didn't. Weeks passed. I was invited to do a podcast interview about emotional recovery through pets. The host asked me, do you think you ever truly let go of the original Juniper? I paused. I think I let go of the version I thought I could control. But the love, no, that stays. That's the part no one can rename. Listeners wrote in afterwards. One woman shared that after a divorce, she had to leave her cat behind. She cried when she heard my words. Now I know. She wrote that even if he changed her name, the love I gave her didn't vanish. It amazed me how grief, when shared, softened. Then, something unexpected happened. I got an offer from a small publisher who'd seen my self-published book. They wanted to republish it with wider distribution. They even suggested turning it into a short film. I signed the contract with shaking hands. Claire filmed me for her Instagram and captioned it, From Heartbreak to Hardcover. Watch my best friend bloom. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a supporting character in someone else's story. I was finally the narrator. Junie, and I celebrated with a long walk at the beach. She ran along the shoreline, barking at the seagulls, kicking up Sand like she owned the place. Watching her, I realized something. Tyler had renamed her, but he hadn't redefined her. She was still goofy, still tender. Still her Zan mine in a way no paper or collar tag could erase. One evening, Claire and I hosted a small party at my place to celebrate the book relaunch. People brought their dogs. It was chaos and laughter and stories being traded like currency. A woman named Natalie approached me near the end of the night. She held her chihuahua against her chest and said, "I read your book after my fiancé gave our dog away during our breakup. You helped me understand that I didn't lose her, I just couldn't follow her. But the love stays, we hug like old friends. I didn't even know her last name. But I knew her pain. That was the thing about writing this story. It kept reminding me I wasn't alone. None of us are, really? Our heartbreaks are different flavors of the same loss. And our healing? That's where the real story begins. As the last guest left and I cleaned up empty wine glasses. Junie rested by the couch, belly up, paws twitching in her sleep. I knelt down beside her, kissed her forehead. "I'm so glad you stayed with me," I whispered. Her tail thumped. And just like that, I knew this wasn't just a story about a dog. It was a story of me. Learning how to name myself again. It was late spring when I got the call. A blocked number. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity tugged harder than caution. "Hi, is this Emily?" My name spoken so gently, like it might shatter. "Yes, who's calling?" "It's Natalie. I know this is strange. But I thought you should know. Tyler's moving to Seattle. He gave up Juniper. She's at the shelter on Brighton Street." I stood in the center of my kitchen, unable to speak. The world slowed around me, sounds dimmed. I could only hear my own heartbeat loud, frantic, desperate. "He renamed her again," she added quietly, "this time just Juno. But they didn't even spell it right on the intake sheet." I thanked her in a daze and hung up. Claire drove me. I couldn't even grip the wheel. My hands shook too hard. We didn't speak much on the way. She just kept her hand on mine the entire ride. I didn't know what I was walking into. Maybe Junie wouldn't recognize me. Maybe she'd been through too much. Maybe she wasn't even mine anymore. But the moment I stepped into that shelter, the second she saw me, all doubt disappeared. She barked, lunged toward the gate, tail wagging in frenzied joy. She whimpered, spun, threw herself into my arms when the staff let her through. And I cried like a mother who finally found her child, like every part of me that had been displaced finally settled. "She never forgot you," the worker said, smiling. "Some dogs don't." I filled out the paperwork right then and there, paid the adoption fee even though it felt strange, like paying to reclaim a part of myself. But when I clicked on a new tag, one that read Juniper Gray, it felt right. That night, she curled up on my bed again. Same side, same soft sigh as she fell asleep. I stared at her, overwhelmed by everything that had changed, and everything that hadn't. Tyler had moved on, changed her name, left her behind. And yet, she waited. Not physically, but in her spirit, like she knew we weren't finished. I took her to the vet the next morning. She was healthy, if a little underweight. I bought her the plush duck toy she used to love and a new collar in forest green. Claire surprised us with a framed photo of the two of us from years ago, one I didn't even know she had. "You're home again," she said simply, hanging it by my front door. And I was, not just because Junie was back, but because I'd finally reclaimed every part of me that I'd given away so freely. The girl who cried when her dog was renamed, she was gone. The woman who took that dog back, gave her the name she'd always known, and built a whole life from the rubble. She was just getting started. Later that week, I was invited to speak at a local library, an event on emotional resilience. I brought Junie with me. I stood in front of strangers, telling the story of a dog who had been renamed, abandoned, and reclaimed, how in trying to let go gracefully, I almost lost the one part of myself I never should have surrendered. "Sometimes healing means fighting for what still has your name on it," I said. "Even if the world tries to write over it." Someone in the back sniffled. Someone else clapped. And Junie, ever the star, barked once like she knew this moment was hers to. It was months past. Juniper adjusted back to my rhythm like no time had passed at all. Every morning, she'd wait by the door before my alarm even went off. Her tail would thump softly against the floor the moment my eyes opened, like a heartbeat reminding me you're not alone. I started volunteering at the shelter, where I found her. Tuesdays and Thursdays became our service days. The staff joked that Junie was their unofficial mascot now. She was gentle with the nervous ones, playful with the stubborn ones. She had a way of sitting beside the quietest dog in the kennel. Just her presence made them calmer. One afternoon, a girl about 9 years old came in with her foster mom. The girl was shy, withdrawn, hiding behind her sleeves. But when Junie trotted up and nudged her palm, she laughed just once. It was soft, quick, but it broke the silence that had likely clung to her for too long. Moments like those made me realize something. Maybe I didn't just get my dog back. maybe. Junie came back so I could find me. Not the version of me who rearranged her life around someone else's whims. Not the one who tried to be agreeable, invisible, accommodating. But the version who could be still, and sure, and solid. The one who could choose peace over resentment, because Tyler never apologized. He moved to Seattle. Got engaged to Natalie, last I heard. He started a podcast on emotional maturity. Funny, right? For a while, I hoped he'd message. That he'd say, "Hey, I messed up. I know what she meant to you." But silence is its own answer. Sometimes what people don't say tells you everything. Claire and I built a Saturday tradition coffee on my porch while Junie chased birds from the lawn. One morning, she turned to me and said, "You know, you could write about this, about Tyler." She laughed. "No, about you. What it means to lose things quietly. What it means to love a dog so much. It leads you back to yourself." That stuck with me. So I did. I wrote small posts, reflections, stories about grief and betrayal and little triumphs, and people read them, shared them, related to them. Strangers messaged me saying, "I thought I was the only one who felt that." Or, "I gave up my cat in a breakup, I still regret it." Or, "Thank you for helping me name my pain. I didn't set out to become anything." But the truth is, pain has a strange way of making room for purpose, and Junie? She just kept showing up. On hard days. On quiet nights. On mornings when I doubted I had anything meaningful to say, she'd sit beside me, head on my knee, like she knew I still needed reminding. "You were never the problem. You were never too much, and you were never forgettable." I got her name engraved in cursive on a small gold charm. I now wear on a necklace right next to another charm that simply says, "Still here." Because I am. I didn't let grief harden me, didn't let betrayal change my heart, didn't let a man's carelessness rewrite my story. I took the broken parts, stitched them back together, and made something whole again. It wasn't just about a dog. It was about knowing who you are, even when someone tries to erase you. So when people ask why I wear that necklace every day, I smile and say, it's a reminder of everything I survived. And when Junie barks in the background, I add, she survived to. And together we're more than what was lost.